Is it visible now? Is my screen visible?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So religion and philosophy in ancient India, religion and philosophy in medieval India, religious reform movements in modern India. These are the topics that we have to discuss in third unit. So first of all, before we discuss as to how the religion and philosophy in ancient India and medieval India and the religious reform movements in medieval India, first of all, we should know what religion is, how people, or what is the understanding of the people when it comes to the word religion and philosophy. So we have discussed as to what is religion. When it comes to, and say in Indian context, religion was never treated as a subject or something which is related to God or related to the ways of worship. No, it is actually a way of life. We have given it the, and say let it be the religious beliefs or rules and regulations or the philosophy. We have given it a status of a practical thing which is to be practiced, which is to be practiced in our daily life. It's not something theoretical which we just listen and which is like a story or a rule which is to be blindly followed. No. So religion is a part of our daily routine life. We have many religious practices which are related to the health and hygiene. Are generally, it's my belief and understanding that religion is, uh, you can say that it depends to a great extent on the geographical conditions and weather conditions of that particular area. That's why if you see, for example, Muslims or Arabs, Islam has started in the Arabian region. It's a desert. So the dressing style, for example, is very simple. They wear white cloth, they cover from their head to toe in white cloth. So religion is nothing but it develops on the weather conditions or geographical conditions of that area. In the same way, here our ancestors, they used to have a single unstitched cloth to cover their body. To be more specific, to cover their lower body. Upper part is covered by a small unstitched single cloth, relatively small, right? Why? Because we are in a temperate zone. It's not too hot, not too cold. So various things. Even if you observe the uh, 1 minute, friends. So I don't have the proper word for prasadam in English, so I'll use the same word. So the prasadas which are distributed in temples do have some science in it. I would say they are dependent on the seasons, right? For example, if you observe, uh, while we celebrate Sri Ramanavami, a cool drink like thing, like say a drink which is prepared with jaggery and what it's pepper is distributed. Why? Because it is summer. People need energetic drinks. So they prepare a drink and they give some kind of a cereal. Right? If you go to some other temples in the month of Kartika Masa, which comes in winter, then you will not get this kind of prasadam. Then the prasadam is different. So even our prasadas, our dressing style, our ways of worship, everything is dependent upon, and so it depends on the religious, sorry, the weather conditions and the geographical conditions of the area. So that is what religion is, to be more specific in Indian context, right? And philosophy is also, generally people think that it is something which is to be discussed by senior citizens or aged people, and it is theoretical. No, we have always given it a status of uh, a practical subject or something which is to be practiced in our daily life. Okay, so Indians have uh, developed a sense of understanding. They have understood the nature, their surroundings, and accordingly all these things have developed. So when it comes to philosophy, The Indian philosophy can be discussed broadly in two groups. One system which believes in Vedas and the other system which doesn't believe in Vedas. Okay, so the system are the schools of thought which believes in Vedas, and based on Vedas or the knowledge that is there in Vedas, they have developed their own ideology or philosophy or developed their own theories. So they come under Astika system, and Nastika system is that system which doesn't
Sir,
believe in the, yeah,
that you asked on prasadam in English.
yeah, yeah.
Sacred food or blessed food?
Okay, but that will not give you the say proper meaning, because there are few words like yajna. We don't have proper word in English. It's only a ritual or sacrifice, but that doesn't convey the exact meaning. Okay, even if you say sacred food, people may understand it, but that is not the exact word. But anyhow, thank you. Thanks for your suggestion. We may use that word, but I don't like using that word sacred food, because I don't think it conveys the exact meaning. Okay. Anyhow, thank you. So the where was I? What was I explaining? Students, what was I explaining? Again, please don't keep quiet.
You were explaining about the Sri Ramanavami, why would if we celebrate in summer.
I've already completed that, and I was talking
And
something
next
else.
Savana Masam in winter,
It's not Savana Masa, it's Kartika Masa. I meant.
Kartika Masam.
Yeah. Then after that, also I was saying something. Okay. So the Indians, they were, yeah, I was talking about the two groups in philosophy. Astika system and Nastika system. Astika system is that system which believes in Vedas and the correctness of Vedas and the usefulness of Vedas. And the Nastika system is that which doesn't believe in Vedas. Okay, so Astika, Nastika are two words which people generally get confused while understanding. People think that Nastika system is atheism and Nastika system is theism, but it is wrong. These words, theism, atheism, are not equivalent, are not the correct words, similar words with similar meaning. Then what are the right words? We don't have right words. But I'll explain you the meaning. Astika system, theism is believing in God, atheism is not believing in God, whereas Astika system is not believing in God or not believing in God. It is believing in Vedas or not believing in Vedas. So Astika system is believing in Vedas, Nastika system is not believing in Vedas. Right? That is the difference. We are not talking about God and having faith in God. Okay, so the under Astika system, that means those systems, those schools of thought which developed basing on the Vedas, there are six schools of thought, and I am clearly saying that it is not the exhaustive list. There are many other schools of thought, many other ideologies, but we don't have full information with regard to those schools of thought. So we are discussing only six because they are most important or more famous, and the information with regard to these schools of thought is available, if not fully, at least to a great extent. Right? And when it comes to Nastika system also, the issue is same. It's not that we have only Buddhism, Jainism, Charvaka, and it's exhaustive list. No, it's not the exhaustive list. It's not the complete list. We have many other persons who have come up with different ideas, who have different theories, but we don't have full information, and they are not that famous. So here we are discussing only those ideas, those schools of thought, those theories which are famous, and regarding which we have some information, some of the other literature, right? So here I want to, before we discuss the, yeah, before we discuss the philosophy and schools of different schools of philosophy, let me read out few words. When Indian philosophers speak of intuitive knowledge, they are concerned with making the room for it and demonstrating its possibility. With the help of logic, and there, as far as they are concerned, the task of philosophy ends. Indian philosophers do not seek to justify religious faith. Philosophic wisdom itself is accorded the dignity of religious truth. theory is not subordinate to practice, but theory itself as a theory is regarded as being supremely worthy and efficacious. Right? It is effective. This is simply whatever message I want to convey to you people. These few lines convey the same message. So what I'm trying to say is, if you observe the Western philosophies or Western scientific development or any other thing, you will feel that for every theory or for every scientific advancement, they have some or the other proof. Indian philosophy is also scientific advancement or scientific thought, with an only exception that we don't have proofs for it. That is why it is said that theory itself is enough. Theory is not subordinate to practice. Theory itself is regarded as being supremely worthy and efficacious. For example, you have to tell you, you take many of you might have heard about Einstein or Ramanujan. Do you know anything about Einstein and Ramanujan? Have you ever heard these names?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Who
sir.
is he? Who is Ramanujan? Who is
So,
He's a
Einstein?
mathematician.
Mathematician,
Einstein is he a mathematician?
No, sir. He's a scientist.
scientist,
What do you mean by scientist? Is he a biologist? Is he a doctor?
physician.
No, physicist is the right word. Physician is a person who has studied medicine, general medicine. Okay? Physicist is the person who studied physics. Okay? That is the proper word. And that too, Einstein is a theoretical physicist. That means he has come up with theories, but he couldn't prove them. I'm saying not all, but he proved some, and some of his theories are not proven by him. It took almost 70, 80 years or 100 years to prove those theories. Somebody else proved it. When it comes to Ramanujan also, he's a mathematician. I don't know whether you have heard about his 3 books wherein he wrote different formulae, or I don't know what to call them, theories or formulae, but he wrote 3 books. 3 of his books are available. And the theories or formulas which are mentioned by him in his first book are not completely proven yet. People are trying to prove those theories, those formulae, mathematical formulae. Only few of them have been proven by others. So people who come up with different ideas, they may not have time, or for various reasons, they may not prove them. It doesn't mean that because those theories don't have practical or proofs, they are wrong. We cannot say like that. But Western philosophers are the modern day researchers. They simply say that the thing which cannot be proven is wrong, but it is utterly wrong to say so. Theory itself is, I'm saying, it has got efficacy, efficacious, I should say, right? So believing that because something is not proven, it is wrong, or because some theory is in existence, it is correct, it is wrong. Of course, we should try to prove it. One should try to prove it who comes up with a theory. But still, if he couldn't prove it, we should not blindly say that it is wrong. So, the Indian philosophy, even though it is just a theory or observation, even though it has got no proofs or nobody has tried to prove it, in those days, now we have, I'm saying, Western scientists are those individuals who have studied science or mathematics, any subject. Many of those, them unknowingly or unknowingly, they have given proofs to our theories, our Indian philosophy. That's a different matter. But in those days, they have come up with just ideas. They just propounded a theory. They said that this is my observation, and that's all. They kept quiet. They never tried to prove it. So the schools of thought, the ideologies, are the observations that we are going to discuss. They are also like scientific research papers or observations. The only thing is they don't have proofs. But now we have proofs. Many of the philosophies or schools of thought or ideologies or observations, they now have proofs. Let us discuss in chronological order. First one is Sankhya. Sankhya is given by Kapila. we call him and say it's our tradition to call a learned person, a scholarly person, Maharshi or Rishi. But we don't understand that language. So if you have to compare them, you can compare them with today's Nobel laureates, or researchers, scientists. So Kapila Maharshi, or scientist Kapila in modern day language, he has observed the nature and he said that there are 25 elements, and he also said that whatever is the metaphysical world comprises of different kinds of things, different kinds of living forms. The flora and fauna are also different in different places. It depends on the land and the weather conditions, the soil and other things, right? So he said everything in reality stems from Purusha or and Prakriti, or the combination of Purusha and Prakriti. What is Purusha? What is Prakriti? Prakriti, you all know its nature. Purusha is the self-awareness. It's not the male of the species. It is the self-awareness or the mind or soul. So his idea is, he's saying that everything in reality is the result of two things. Either it is Prakriti or Purusha, or else it is Prakriti and Purusha, the combination of both things. That's what his idea is. Do you have any confusion, or do you want me to give more clarification? Or is it okay? Are you getting my point?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Okay. So that is what is his idea. So is there anything which is irrational in it? Or is he talking about any religion or religious belief or god or goddess? మళ్ళీ కామ్ ఉంటారండి. నేను ఏం అడుగుతున్నా అంటే, ఈ కపిల మహర్షి ఏమైనా దేవుడు, దయ్యము, మతము అని ఇలాంటి విషయాలు చెప్పాడా ఇందులో? ఇప్పటి వరకు మనం అనుకున్న దాంట్లో ఏదైనా డిస్కషన్ లో వచ్చిందా? కపిల
No,
మహర్షి,
no,
Kapila
sir.
Maharshi is talking about two things: Prakriti and Purusha, nature and self-awareness. And uh, he has also identified 25 elements, right? So, is there anything related to God or religion? No,
No, sir.
as far as my knowledge goes, right? So don't be under the wrong impression that Indian philosophy, or whenever you come across the word philosophy, don't think that it is related to religion or it is something related to aged people. No, it is also a subject which can be practiced. It is as scientific as modern day physics, chemistry, mathematics, right? Then the second idea, or second school of thought, is by Patanjali Maharshi. He has come up with an idea, and his idea or his theory or his dogma is named as yoga. He also accepted the 25 elements which are identified by Kapila Maharshi, and he said, yes, you take any living or non-living thing, it is made up of some material, and that material can be, and say, the ultimate aim of that thing is to attain moksha. What is moksha? Almost all the religions of the world believe that the life and death, and say we take birth, then we do something good or bad, and to reap the fruits of that good or bad deeds, we again have to take birth. So it's a vicious circle: taking birth, doing something good or bad, then dying, then to face the consequences, we again have to take birth, then we'll face those consequences and say the result, then again we'll do something good or bad, then we'll die, then we'll take birth again. So it's a vicious circle. Continuously these things will happen. Breaking that is the ultimate aim. And what will happen if we break that? This soul will be united with the supreme soul, Atma Paramatma to kalavadam. When is it possible? It is possible when you know the truth. How can you know the truth? To know the truth, you need to have, first of all, that bent of mind. You have to have interest in that. You should try to know it. But is trying enough? For example, if you want to have a degree, graduation degree, what you have to do? First of all, you have to join that course. Then you have to learn the things. You have to understand them. You have to memorize them. Wherever it is required to remember them, you have to remember them. Wherever it is required to understand them, you have to understand them. Then you have to sit for the examination, appear for the examination. Then you have to write it properly. Then you have to pass the examination. Then you will get the certificate. In the same way, if you want to break the circle, life and death circle, and if you want to and say you want to unite your soul with the supreme soul, if you want to enjoy the eternal bliss, then you need to have some things. There are, and say the prerequisites are to have a sound mind. How can you have a sound mind? Until unless you have sound body, it is not possible to have sound mind. How can you have these things? That is what is the gist of yoga. So Patanjali says that by following a eightfold path which is given by him, one can make his body and mind robust, or he can reach that level where it becomes possible for one to understand the ultimate truth or enjoy the eternal bliss. So what are those 8 steps? What is that eightfold path? That is yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, pratyahara, dharana, dhyana and samadhi. One should start with yama and following the other steps, niyama, asana, pranayama, pratyahara, dharana, dhyana and samadhi, will reach the samadhi stage wherein he can enjoy the eternal bliss. So is there anything which is illogical? Even if you feel that he's talking about life and death, we don't know whether it is a continuous circle, that means one will take birth again and again and again or not. You may not know this, but still okay. Even if you are not okay with it, even if you don't believe in it, remaining things whatever he said is right and logical. It is good to have a mind, and say a mind which can have the capacity to understand and digest different things, to be more specific, the ultimate reality or truth. You are learning mathematics. What is it? It is the ultimate reality or truth. The nature gives you the information and you are learning it in different ways. Some people learn it in the form of mathematics. Some people learn it in the form of physics. Some people learn it in the form of chemistry. Somebody expresses it with some language. So you have to have languages. So different things. So ultimately, here he is accepting the Patanjali Maharshi is talking about, or it's trying to explain that one should have a robust mind and body, which will help him in understanding the truth or reality. And he has also accepted or validated, I should say, that the 25 elements which are identified by Sankhya are real. How many elements do we have now? Again, hibernating. Yeah, చెప్పండి. చెప్పడానికి మళ్ళీ ఎందుకు ఆలోచిస్తున్నారు? ఎంత చెప్పినా మీకు అర్థం కాండి. దేవుడిని ఏమని కోరుకుంటే మీరు అందరూ కూడా టీచర్లు కావాలి, ఒక్క స్టూడెంట్ కూడా మీ మాట వినొద్దు. Students, yeah.
I didn't get the question, sir. How many elements do we have now, sir? Or
మీకు ఇప్పుడు పీరియాడిక్ టేబుల్ ఉంది కదండి. I hope you have heard this periodic table. So how many elements are there in the periodic table? మీకు ఎన్ని పీరియాడిక్ టేబుల్స్ ఉన్నాయి?
118 sir.
Very good. ఎన్ని పీరియాడిక్ టేబుల్స్ ఉన్నాయండి? ఒకటేనా రెండా?
only one, sir.
Really? I thought there are 2 periodic tables. 2 scientists have come up with 2 different periodic tables. Is it not so? Okay. So anyhow, you said it's 118 elements. Now the modern sciences, they have discovered, they are saying that there are 118 elements. Now you imagine a person talking about 25 elements 3000 years ago. Minimum 3000 years ago. Is it not great? Is it not worth knowing? Is it not worth celebrating?
Yes, sir. It is worth, sir.
Okay. So Kapila Maharshi has identified, or he discovered 25 elements, and Patanjali Maharshi has also he has accepted it, he validated them, and along with that, he is saying to know or to have knowledge or to make your mind and body robust or to take them into the next level where you can understand the ultimate reality or truth. You need to practice this yoga, and yoga it comprises of 8 stages. They are yama niyama, as I said. Okay, what is yama, what is niyama, what is asana, what is pranayama, what is pratyahara, dharana, dhyana, and samadhi. Samadhi is, as I said, ultimate thing. To reach that level you need to concentrate, that is dhyana. Dharana is memory, first of all, whether it is listening or reading or seeing, whatever it is. Once you read it, once you listen it, once you see it, once you observe it, once you do it, you have to memorize it, you have to remember it. For this, what is required? First of all, pratyahara. You should have or you should maintain some rules and regulations in eating, and so you should control your eating habits, which will help you in making your body and mind robust. Pranayama, it is the technique of inhalation and exhalation, which will again improvise your body. Asana, the sitting posture or standing posture. Have you ever, did you ever get a chance to know how to face interviews, or what is the classroom etiquette, or different kinds of etiquette? Have you ever come across these things? Did anyone talk about these things with you? Body language or behavior or dressing sense.
Yes, sir.
So here he is also talking about your posture, that is asana. When you are talking to someone, why, how should you stand, or what is the correct posture when you sit, how to sit, what is the proper way of sitting. You know, these are the things which are observed in SSBs. What is SSB? SSB is an interview, Service Selection Board interview. If you go to top ranks and say, if you go for top positions in defense services, or if you go for IAS, IPS, All India Services selection, then you will have an interview board which is called SSB board, Service Selection Board. Okay, there they observe everything, how you are, whether you are before entering the room you are taking the permission or not, whether you are knocking the door or not, how you are making an entrance, how you are walking from the door to your chair, how you are dragging it, how you are sitting it, what is your posture, how you are folding your hands. Everything is observed. How you wish them, everything is observed. He is also talking the same, and so he is also telling you that your posture, your sitting style, your standing style, everything will make your body either good or bad, which will in turn affect on your mind. Do you know about Stephen Hawking? Have you ever read or heard about
Yes,
him?
Yes, sir.
What was he? Okay, he discovered black holes, or he wrote many things. He wrote a book on time travel. He wrote some many papers on black holes. True, but do you know that he was suffering with a kind of what should I say, an ailment? He was actually affected by a virus, because of which he couldn't move his uh, uh, any body part, any of his body parts. He would have made wonders. Would it have been the other way? I mean, say, would he have been healthy? ఆల్రెడీ చాలా గొప్ప గొప్ప విషయాలు డిస్కవరీస్ చేశాడు. హీఈస్ ఆఫ్టర్ ఐన్స్టీన్, పీపుల్ సే దట్ హీఈస్ ది పర్సన్ హూ హాస్ గాట్ దట్ మచ్ ఇంటెలిజెన్స్. Agreed. But would he have been healthy? Had he been healthy, he would have done wonders. Am I right? So this Patanjali is also
Yes, sir.
saying that robust or healthy body is required for healthy mind, and with the combination of healthy body and mind, you can you'll know, or you'll have the capacity to understand the ultimate truth. Okay. Then comes Nyaya, the third school of thought. It is Gautama Maharshi, our scientist Gautama Akshapada. His full name is Akshapada Gautama. He has come up with this theory. And Nyaya, and say his theory, he says that he is talking about the knowledge that is acquired by a person is trying to validate the knowledge that is acquired by a person. He is saying that the knowledge that is acquired by a person can be said valid only if it is acquired in four ways. What are the four ways? If it is, and say the source is perception, or the source is inference, or the source is comparison, or the source is testimony, then only then the knowledge is considered as valid. Okay, so Gautama is saying is, I don't know whether the people have any idea of the modern day, how people work for PhDs, how they present their papers and all those things. Okay, so do you have any idea?
No, sir.
Okay, let us not get into that discussion, but there is a procedure or a process how you have to find the facts, how you have to project them. In the same way, the Akshapada, I'm saying this person, Akshapada Gautama, is also talking about, he's explaining the ways. He's actually not explaining the all the ways, but he's talking about those ways through which, if knowledge is acquired, can be said that it is valid knowledge. Otherwise, it cannot be considered as valid knowledge. So most of the scientific community, and say before going for research, they will also, first of all, for example, if I join in PhD, what I have to do is, first 6 months, I just have to study the research methodology, how to do research, what are the right ways, how one should present his facts, how the data should be presented, how to come to a conclusion, and how to validate it. In the same way, thousands of years ago, Gautama talked about the validation process. He said the knowledge acquired through these four sources, that is, perception, inference, comparison, testimony, is the only valid source. So like this, people have come up with different ideas. People's understanding was different. They concentrated on different things. Right? So
Yes, sir.
don't be under the wrong impression that philosophy is something which is related to religion. It is all observations. Each one has observed something, and according to that, depending upon his perception, his knowledge, his understanding, they have come up with theories. Kapila talked about 25 elements and Purusha and Prakriti. Then yoga, Patanjali talked about yoga, making your body and mind robust so that you can understand the ultimate reality or truth. And Gautama is talking about the valid sources of knowledge, are the what are the correct ways to acquire get knowledge. Then the fourth one is Vaisheshika. Vaisheshika is the theory given by, propounded by Kanada Maharshi. Do you understand anything by the name Kanada? Does it convey anything to you?
No, sir.
Okay. Kana Ada. ఎప్పుడైనా విన్నారా కణం అనే word? Have you ever come across this word, Telugu or Sanskrit word kanam?
Yes.
No, sir.
One who said yes. What is your understanding of this word kanam?
No, sir. I said
Means
Okay.
cell, I think so.
Correct. Cell. Kanam ante cell. Very good. So, cell theory ఎవరు చెప్పారండి?
Don't know, sir.
Robert Boyle.
I think it is Theodor Schwann. Google says it is Theodor Schwann in 1839. Now this person, okay, whoever it is, Western scientist, it's not the question. The question is this knowledge of the cell, and so people have acquired it. Western scientists have acquired it somewhere around 17th or 18th century, if not 18th, 16th maximum, but not prior to that. But this Kanada, who lived in 6th century BC, according to historians, traditionally I say he is thousands of years old, or ago he used to live on this earth. But historians say that it is 6th century. That means at least 3,600 years, 2000 plus 5, yeah, 3,100 years. At least 2000, not 2000, 2600 years minimum. So 2600 years ago, this guy talked about self, Kana. The first person to talk about Kana, that is why Kana Adi. Adi is first. He got the name Kanada. His original name was Alukya. People started calling him Kanada. Why? Because he was from his childhood he was fascinated with the smallest thing, smallest particle. Of course, we now know that there are electrons, protons, neutrons, and neutrinos, which are smaller than electrons and neutrons. Many things. But 3,000 years ago, almost 2,600 to 3,000 years ago, a person talking about self, he said, whatever the material is, it can be divided or it can be broken into parts. Like that, if we go on breaking it into small parts, then that small part which cannot be broken into pieces any further is named as Kana cell. And things come into existence because of this cell only. That's what he said 2600 to 3000 years ago without any modern equipment. Is it not science? Students, I am asking you a simple question. Is it not science?
Right.
So, this fourth school of thought or ideology or perception or theory is also science. So, this Kanada or this person Alukya, who was very famous with this name Kanada, he is the first person in India and Indian culture to talk about Kana. And he also said that this Kana, which is the basic form of life, gets its energy from God. So where he could not understand, where he could not reason as how these cells are existing, or where is the what is the source of the life, or power, or energy for these atoms or cells. He said it is God who is giving them the energy or power to live on. Right. So except this point, the last point, other things are purely scientific. As Leeuwenhoek or Theodor Schwann, they have identified cell. They are also identified cell. So like this, people have observed different things, and their observation led them to different conclusions. And their conclusions, they have theorized them. And these theories now we are discussing in the form of with the name of Indian philosophy. Then comes Purva Mimamsa. Oh, it's already free. So students, if you have any doubts, we can discuss, you can ask them. Otherwise, what I'll do is I'll take attendance and continue in my next session. And once again, I'm reiterating, please don't keep fighting the class. But I'm not asking you to disturb the class. I'm just asking you to respond to my questions. And whenever you have doubts, you have to ask me, you can interrupt me. Right now, please answer your roll call. And if anyone has got any doubts, they can ask me now. Meanwhile, I'll take the attendance. 61,
Present, sir.
62,
Present, sir.
63,